Hey, this is Sam. Our goal today is going to be to take our data from ACC into Power BI so that we can do really cool analysis and share that with the whole world. So let's get started. We're going to be using VIM Enterprise today. First thing we're going to do is start a new project, and this is going to be an ACC project. And so we're going to call this ACC test and click OK. Now in here, we've already done our ACC connection. So all the data is going to flow pretty much automatically when we click the button pick. So let's go in here. We know it's going to be in the VIM folder in the Skanska Tower 2025. And when we look at this project file, we're going to be choosing the architecture model. And in here, we already have a 3D view that has been published. So it's called VIM ALL, or sometimes we'll use VIM, but VIM ALL contains more of the topography. So in here in the 3D view, we're going to select VIM ALL and click Done. Now the export option will be the same as with regular Revit files. You can export everything as one file, but if you have a really huge file, I highly recommend use the parallel export, because let's say you have 5 links, it'll process those 5 links separately at the same time, and it's going to remerge them extremely quick after. So if you have large files, if speed matters, just set it to parallel. Keep in mind, when you use ACC, is going to be using some tokens. So depending on the size of your project, it may cost 25 cents, 50 cents, $1, $2, $3 every time you convert that big model. So something to keep in mind, if you are using parallel, it's probably going to use a bit more tokens, but it'll go a lot faster and it'll process models that are, nearly unprocessable otherwise. When you export, you also have the option to not export the parameters if you just need the 3D geometry. You can skip empty parameters, but obviously if you skip them, you can't audit it. Empty parameters are bad. If you can audit them and fix them in Revit, it's better. If you don't have the time, just go ahead and skip those empty parameters. Now, keep in mind, in terms of the database, the parameters are often about half of the database. So if you can export less parameters, it'll be faster for creating that database and faster for retrieving that data into Power BI every single time. Like this model, for example, has 5,000 parameters that result in about 7.5 million parameter values. That's only for the instance parameters. So if you reduce that 5,000 parameters to just 20, well, your database is going to be a lot smaller, a lot faster, a lot more nimble. But of course, you need to have a clear goal in mind if you're going to go in this direction. Okay, now we do need to set a VIM file path. The VIM file is something internally Revit will convert the file into a VIM. The VIM has really optimized geometry and all of the parameters and other project parameters. So you need to store it locally, and then that VIM file becomes a SQL database, which then gets ingested into Power BI. So we just need to put this somewhere where we know we can find it later, and I'm just going to place it in the main project folder. Now the database connection string and blob storage is going to be something that your IT is going to give you. So in this case, you say, hey, I've got a new project, ACC test. They're going to give you a new database connection string. But the blob storage is pretty much the same on every project. And you see that as soon as we put that in, it fills in the information here. Now I'm ready to go to the top and click run. Now everything is going to be running in the cloud. So that's great, because if you want to convert 300 projects in the exact same time and you want it quick, well, you can't really do that with Revit locally, because there's no way it's going to open 300 instances of Revit at the same time. It's going to crash the computer. But with a cloud, you could schedule all of these jobs to run at the same time, or just trigger them to run at the same time, and it wouldn't have any issues with capacity because it's running on the ACC cloud with the related cost of the ACC tokens. So keep that in mind. Extremely scalable, extremely fast, but there's a bit of a cost every time you do a conversion. Okay, while this is happening, we're going to grab our enterprise template for Revit. Now, your enterprise, your BIM director may have already modified this template, improved it to fit your company logo, your company reports, remove reports that they don't care about. And so just take whatever template is the latest associated with the VIM Enterprise. And down here, I'm just going to call this ACC test. And I'm also going to open the file so that when the conversion is ready in ACC, I'll be ready to just put in the data in Power BI and start ingesting that data. All right, so our file just finished converting. It took about 58 minutes with all of those parameters and the speed of our server. We also didn't use the parallel export. That would have sped things up. I'll do a separate video on the differences between the export times for that. Now, what we're going to do is scroll down to the bottom here where it says Power BI in yellow, and we're going to start copying our database server. In Power BI, we're going to go to Transform Data, Data Source Settings, and change the source of our data. Right here, I've got my database server, paste it in here, database name, paste it in here, and I'm going to clear the permission just so you see what it looks like on your end the first time you connect. Close this, apply the changes up here, and within a couple seconds, it's going to ask me for my username and password. So I'm going to click database here, and then database username. That's my username, database password. Here we go, and click connect. So at this point, it's ingesting all of the data from the server and the database, and it's doing a lot of transformations inside of Power BI. So this can take some time, especially if you've customized the template to do some complex calculations and transformations. Now, while we're here waiting, there's something interesting that kind of comes from this data naturally. We kind of start seeing the size of the data. Actually, you see the element table is pretty much our biggest table. So it's starting to fill, and it's probably going to go to maybe 1 million or something like that. And we also start seeing the family instance. That's our biggest table usually because every element has multiple parameters. I believe it's 7.5 million in this case. So we see there's 4 BIM documents, right? So we start to see the kind of shape of this data, and you can poke around and see what's in there. As you dive deeper into data model, the thing is you can decide to remove some of these tables entirely. Like if you don't do anything with systems, if you don't care about the warnings, if you don't care about the rooms, you can delete these tables, and when you load new data, it's just going to be quicker. So the data model is really the backbone to this entire operation, and we see it in action while it's loading the data. Okay, so our template has updated. Now I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to turn on VIM desktop app, go to the VIM Ultra tab and start VIM Ultra. So when I go back here and I change the browser to a different page, it's going to load the 3D model in VIM Ultra mode. So instead of downloading every single time, it's going to download it once. And then when I switch page, it's going to be much faster, pretty much instantaneous for loading that model, as well as it's going to support extremely large models. So let's switch to tabs and see how much faster that is. Look at that. That's a huge improvement on the quality of life. We'll check out this other report like wall systems, or perhaps we go to the warnings page. All right, so that's how you get your project from ACC right into Power BI to do some analysis. And then, of course, you can customize this, make it your own, connect it to your own data, and share it with anybody you'd like to share it to. All right, thanks so much. Have a great day. Cheers.